The Mills arc is shaping up to be the most interesting Rebecca-focused arc of Eden Zero we had of yet, with two big reveals and a major implication for Rebecca's power in this chapter. I can't help but be excited to see what's next in chapter 251 and beyond. So, getting into the chapter, we open up exactly with the ending of the last one, with Professor Wise having destroyed the Joker Helix drone that had attacked Rebecca, and we get this amazing comedic moment where she has all the same questions for him that we had at the end of the last chapter, only for him to respond back with, "Hey, before all that, how about you put on some clothes?" Showing that despite how much of a perv he was in his younger days, as we see a lot from our own version of Wise, he did eventually end up growing up to be... Okay, admittedly, based on what we've seen from him in previous chapters, he probably did still grow up to be kind of a perv, but hey, at least he draws a line and not getting excited by looking at his own adopted daughter naked. Now, Old Man Wise does actually end up confirming one suspicion I had from his appearance in the last chapter. It turns out he actually was tracking down Joker Helix and followed the drone to Mills thinking it was a real one. Unfortunately, he does now end up disproving another theory I had from the last chapter, as he confirms that it was in fact the drone that had manipulated time and not Rebecca. You see, it turns out that the drone had not actually stopped time like we all originally thought it did, but instead slowed it down to the point where time seemed to be frozen, and it was not able to do this to the entire planet, but only a small radius. Well, I say small, but it must be a pretty big radius. It was able to get the area that they're currently in now, which is pretty far away from where they originally started. Now, we already know that the reason why Rebecca wasn't affected by it was due to Cat Leaper, and we'll end up finding out later on in the chapter why Rachel still fell under the effects of the time manipulation, despite also having that ether gear. But we also find out the reason why Professor Wise and Bernie... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Bernie is here. I guess even in this universe, there's still a couple in the future. But we find out that they just so happen to be out of range when the drone activated its power for it to affect them, and that I guess that only those who are in the range of the power when it's activated are affected by the time manipulation. That's the reason why they're able to move freely as if time was moving normally for them. Which, I mean, yeah, so far all good explanations to the questions we had from the last chapter, but I don't know, I still find it a little too convenient that they just so happen to be out of range when the drone activated its power, and that they were able to get to Rebecca so quickly despite how far the fight had moved from its original spot. Anyway, the professor turns off the drone's power. We get a slightly funny scene of everyone in the bash reacting to the after effects of what happened when time was basically frozen for them. Then we head back inside for a debrief from the old man, where we end up confirming quite a few things that we thought in the last chapter. First off, yes, Old Man Wise was the one who created Joker Helix. Turns out it was originally just a game engine he had created to make games for Rebecca when she was a kid. So I guess at least he had good intentions when he created it. I mean, what kid wouldn't want their own game engine or game created specifically for them? But he made the same exact mistakes Ziggy did when creating the Edens 1, as he put an AI inside of it that eventually ended up going rogue, just like Void. And just like Ultron from the Avengers movie, by the time he realized it, Helix had grown way too powerful and spread itself into multiple networks across the cosmos, eventually creating a robotic body for itself, along with apparently a few dozen drones. We'll get back to that in a moment because that's going to be important later on. And it ended up joining forces with Void in its mission to erase all life from the universe. And we also end up finding out that the reason why it came to Milts in the first place is that it's hunting down Mother Ether, as confirmed by the AI at the end of the chapter, as we see multiple drones, basically like a dozen or so, descending onto the city that they're in, presumably all with the ability to slow down time. Now, since we know it was hunting down Mother Ether, and with how incredibly difficult it is to find Milts without knowing the exact location of the planet, I think it's kind of safe to assume that Joker was hunting and tracking down Eden Zero the entire time, probably planning on attacking it and stealing the Mother Ether from it, but didn't manage to do so before it landed on Milts. But now that it's here, it plans to not only take the Mother Ether that the EZ crew collected, but also discover any secrets connected to the planet to Mother that it and Void could use to find her. And with dozens of drones invading the city, all assumingly with the ability to slow down time, the only one who could stand in their way at this point is Rebecca. You see, it turns out that Rachel in this universe had lost her time-based powers years ago, meaning that the one and only time priestess in Universe Zero is Rebecca. Well, I mean, there's also Xiao Mei, but I'm not exactly sure where she fits into all of this when it comes to like Cat Leaper and the Time Priestess and the Time Church and all that. Is she connected to any of this? Is she separate? We really don't know that much about her. But with Rebecca inheriting the title of Time Priestess, this confirms what I theorized on ever since they entered Universe Zero, that despite Rachel's claims that once Rebecca leaves Universe 3 she'd lose all her time-based abilities, that she still actually ended up retaining them. Maybe not the same exact ones she had in Universe 3, like Reverse and all that, but she might end up getting some new time-based abilities going forward. And considering the droids are spread far enough across the city that everyone is going to be inside their range, she might be the only hope they have of stopping them. Which means whatever powers Rebecca has, they'll be showing themselves in the next few chapters. Though that being said, it's not like she's exactly alone, she might still have some backup, because now that Shiki knows about the drones and what their abilities are, he might be able to use his gravity ether to basically block out and negate the effects of the time being slowed down for them, so she might still have the crew that she has with her to back her up in this fight. And there's still everyone on board Eden Zero, assuming that they're still in space above the planet, they'll more than likely be outside of the range of the AoE attack, which means they could still end up being her backup in case Shiki and them do end up getting slowed down to the point where they're basically frozen. So we could possibly end up seeing Rebecca in the next chapter leading the B team and taking down this major threat. Anyway, I don't know about you guys, but to me, the Mills arc is gearing up to be possibly the most exciting arc since getting to Universe Zero so far, and I can't wait to see what Hero cooks up in the next following chapters.